Okay, guys, big fan of the work you've been doing over summer. I've been watching this book come together. On your social feeds, you're collaborating with your audience, you're asking their opinion on the cover, all those things. This is your second book. We're moving from the age of social into the age of context. What does that really mean for me as a person, most people milling around here? What does it mean in their lives?
You want me to go?
Yeah, for once I'll go. It's 7 years ago, we wrote a book that said there's this social media thing. It's going to be really big and business should stop calling it a fad because it's going to change business. And that was pretty good, and Robert and I became pretty well known because of our evangelism of that. 7 years later, just 7 years later, social media is just a commodity. There is no business looking forward that doesn't have social media as part of its strategy. It's become a mature platform. Robert's out there, and he's looking at the leading edge of the world. This is what he does for Rackspace, which is a pretty cool job. And we started talking, and he was seeing these other forces coming in, and we started talking. We said, how do we define it? We saw this age of context, which Robert can explain a little more just what we mean by that.
I mean, really what's changed in the last 7 years is everybody has one of these now. And because we have one of these, we're generating a lot more location data than we've ever done. Google in the last year has 600% more data about location today than it did a year ago. So that is growing very, very quickly. And add on social and add on sensors. We have 7 sensors on that device, right? And we're soon going to have devices like this or devices on our wrists that have a lot more sensors. And even I'm seeing next year shirts that have sensors and shoes that have sensors. So we're going to have a lot of sensors. And soon we're going to also walk by little radios that are going to add context to where we are. And that's, so our new software is going to know where we are, who we're with, what we're doing, what our context is, and that's going to lead to a new kind of software that is just not possible on a laptop.
I'm getting visions of that scene from Minority Report where the guy's running around and he's told, you look like you could really use a Guinness right now. That sounds a bit intrusive, but I'm thinking more positively about it. I was just talking to Phil Laban from Evernote, and he was saying most people aren't really ready for what the changes that are even going to happen in their work life because of how the consumerization of IT is changing the things they will work with. In terms of how businesses and consumers will interact, do we want too much advertising? Do we want too much intrusion? Is there a way that they'll do it more without friction? It'll be more of a service that will be more in tune with our lives, and it's not an intrusion.
In our book, we introduce a term called pinpoint marketing. Right now, direct marketers profit very well if they get 2% of the audience. The problem is the other 98% of us really don't like being shouted at, having our lives intruded upon. We now have the ability, or marketers now have the ability, to only address you when you're likely to want what they're selling. So if you're going down, well, let's talk about a shopping center. That's simple enough. If it's the morning, you might be offered 40% on a cup of coffee. On your way home, you might be offered 40% off on your first beer. In between that, if there's a fire in the mall and a first responder comes in wearing something like Robert is wearing right now, instead of seeing ads for coffee and beer, the glass is going to know the context of why he's there. He's going to find out where the injured people are, where the hazardous material is. That's what it's coming to. It means, though, for a marketer, that they can tell you what you want, when you want, based on time of day, where you are, who you are, what your preferences are, and it's going to know that with pinpoint accuracy.
Yeah, it's not about advertising. If this world is about advertising, I'm not going to wear this thing. If I'm walking around and I'm constantly getting bombarded by ads, it is about intent and commerce. I want to say, bring me a beer or bring me a Chinese salad sandwich or something like that, and have it come right to me. And that's already starting. It's changing how we live in cities, right? Shel calls it the new urbanist. Because people are moving into the core of the city to get these new technologies, right? We used to be suburb. My dad wanted to live in the suburbs, not in the downtown area, because the downtown area was not the nice place to live, right? So that's a shift, and we talk about cars, how cars are changing because of sensors and big data and the location data, right? The Google self-driving car needs to know where it is to work, and it wouldn't work without the Google mapping system, right? And on and on.
I think we're at an amazing time when I think back of Google's story alone. 15 years ago, two guys running around a campus maxing credit cards to buy servers. We're in what we're calling now the maker revolution, where people are using Arduino boards and they're using 3D printing. And I have a suspicion that maybe we might just see another kind of industrial revolution, more democratic and less in the hands of big companies, more in the hands of individuals. What's your feeling about the future economy in a world where it's driven by context, it's driven by big data? People can make their own things if they're clever enough and have enough support and go to market and build whatever they want. What do you think about the future?
We visited Tech Shop, which is one of these huge places you can go to get a 3D printer and get a milling machine or get access to really expensive CAD software to build a product like this, right? What that means is the cost of building a company is going way down. The square unit that we use to take our book sales was designed in the Tech Shop, right? The actual unit, the actual credit card swiper. This is letting people build companies for very little money, and you're right, it is democratizing company building. No longer do you have to build your headquarters in Silicon Valley right next to the money, right? Because Sand Hill Road had all the money. That's why Intel and Apple and Cisco started there, because they needed access to that capital. Now you can start a company, a sensor company for $10,000, $20,000, $100,000. GoPro was started for $100,000, right? And it's getting cheaper.
The new urbanists are changing the American economy at a time when it's really needed. Excuse me. It's, for one thing, as the wealth goes into the cities, young parents are demanding better education. They don't care about cars. They'll use a zip car or Uber or something like that. They would rather have a tool like Robert held up, a phone. And government is learning they can be more responsive efficiently with more citizens by being transparent, at least on the municipal level. So we're seeing education starting to change. We're seeing government starting to be more responsive. One of the sponsors of our book, Autodesk, it has all this 3D design, which is responsible for all these cool special effects in movies. Well, they're using it to design cities, projects in cities. See the building, what's under the building, in terms that you and I can understand rather than just architects. And people are getting to look at it and say, wait a minute, if you build that building over there, 3 exits down, the school my kids go to are going to have a traffic problem. Before, these were all siloed. So this is what's happening. It's exciting for the U.S., whose economy keeps teetering, for Ireland, who certainly has had economic issues. There's a hope that something is going to happen, and it's going to be transformational, and it may come much faster than people think. And it will come from people driving up rather than from the top down that has been the de facto these days.